The good member from the 14th, Representative Corry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And before I begin my remarks, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the challenge it can be, even in a supplemental year, to put together a complex and widespread operating budget. So I want to thank the good members of the 3rd, the 43rd, the 11th, and the 33rd for their work, because this is above and beyond, and it takes a lot of time to put stuff like this together. As I sit on appropriations, we spend a lot of evenings and weekends hearing about policy from all around this body and how that may or may not incorporate into our state's operating budget. It is no simple task. And that's why, as the ranking Republican on the committee, I've always asked to be included in that decision making, that you and I can have our disagreements, but we should also have our moments where we sit together and try to work through them to figure out what we can do to better Washington through the operating budget. Today I'm going to be asking for a no for several reasons. I'd like to take a look back 10 years, Madam Speaker. The year is 2014. The Seahawks have just won their first Super Bowl, and the legislature was meeting and adopting their supplemental budget. And what was that budget in 2014, Madam Speaker? It was $200 million. $100 million for maintenance and $100 million for ongoing policy. 10 years later, we're once again looking at a supplemental budget. Unfortunately, the Seahawks were not winners of the Super Bowl this year, nor did they get a chance. But yeah, sorry, let that sink in for a moment. But we're again passing that supplemental budget after a Super Bowl. And here we are, instead of $200 million, we're looking at $2.2 billion in a supplemental increase in funding. We're told this is a true supplemental budget, and while I agree that technically it is a supplemental budget, there is a variety of new policy programming and spending in here out of $2.2 billion. That's a 1,000% increase over 10 years. The base budget increased spending by $5.6 billion last year and $2.2 billion this year for a total increase of $7.8 billion. And what does that get us? Make no mistake, Madam Speaker, there's a lot of good things in this budget, and we're going to hear about some of those, and we would largely agree with them. There's good things all over, but it also is spread across a lot of areas that may or may not have a priority for Washington State residents for problems that they want us to fix right now. There's some good things for some, but unfortunately, there's a lot of costs being driven up for everyone with little results and little impact to their daily lives. Washingtonians see their costs rise year after year, and no doubt in this budget, it does again. We are one of the only states, Madam Speaker, that has not enacted broad-based tax reform in the entire country. So while this revenues to our state goes up, we provide no relief to Washingtonians as a whole. This is a good budget for our government, Madam Speaker. We continue to fund and expand the growth of government in a variety of areas that, again, may or may not have impact to everyday Washingtonians. So while this may be a good budget for some, and it certainly is a good budget for the state, it is not a good budget for all of Washington. Where does this fall short, Madam Speaker? We've offered a number of amendments today to try to address real problems that Washingtonians, like those in my district and those in yours, demand answers for now. Not later, not at some point in the future. They want these problems addressed now. Our state, again, as mentioned previously, is 51 out of 51 of police officers per capita. Homicides are up 96% in our state since 2019. We're, again, the number one for retail theft, number 2 for property crime, and number 3 for crime overall. Madam Speaker, those are real problems that Washingtonians like mine, constituents in my district and your district, are asking for answers for now. We're the 4th most expensive place to buy groceries. Washingtonians have told us, give us tax relief so we can afford to make our budget meet. And while the state has continued to grow, a lot of our residents haven't seen that growth in their budgets. Madam Speaker, we know that a healthy business climate is essential to ensuring this continued prosperity, not just for state coffers, but also for the bank accounts and the savings accounts for those across our state. Unfortunately, we continue to fall. We're now ranked 35th in the country in terms of a business-friendly climate, down from just 15th 2 years ago. 60% when you look at education of our students are failing in math, while 50% are failing in reading. Our citizens, mine and yours, Madam Speaker, are asking for support to change that now. We've offered those amendments. Unfortunately, they were turned down. These are just a few areas that Washingtonians are concerned about that I believe we can do better. You and I, Madam Speaker, can do better as a state. When I came to Olympia, I came to represent my constituents and help be part of solutions that address their problems and those problems that face our entire state. I wanted to be included in that discussion because I want all of Washington to succeed. I may represent the 14th, but the 14th has concerns that are similar in the 31st, the 3rd, the 45th, and so on. This budget should reflect the input and experience from members across this state, whether you represent areas from the Puget Sound to the Yakima Valley, the Washington Coast, or the Palouse. We all have ideas, and we all want to be part of moving this state forward. And in a lot of areas, Madam Speaker, we see that work. Some of the best legislation that comes out of this floor, Madam Speaker, is ones where we sat down together, not Republican or Democrat, but 2 legislators, 3 legislators wanting to fix a problem. And that's why it's so important to be in a room when budgets like this are created, because we have ideas. We represent millions of Washingtonians, Madam Speaker. And while, yes, we get to come and propose certain amendments or, additional projects that are good, sometimes missed, being in the room ensures that those are addressed beforehand, that we say, no, wait a minute, there may be a better way to do this. I think you see that reflected in the body across the rotunda as they were included in all those discussions and coming to the table.
Please speak to the policy in front of you and not the process.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today, I cannot support a budget that excludes input of representatives representing millions of Washingtonians. And while I agree this budget is filled with things that I think are good, overall, it falls short of addressing things that we need now. This budget continues to fail to address the rising costs of living for all of Washingtonians in my district, and I would imagine in your district as well, Madam Speaker. This budget fails to address the public safety crisis facing Washingtonians now. Instead, it puts it off for later. Frankly, Madam Speaker, this budget fails to fix Washington, and I'm asking for a no.